welcome along to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today we are once again joined by Kyle Brookland from Informed Property Inspections. Kyle, thanks for joining us again.
How you doing, guys?
Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to do due diligence on a new build, both when you're going through the phase of checking out a developer's work, but then also if you've bought one, what to do at settlement to make sure that the quality of build is there. Because just before we hit record on the show today, Kyle, you'd mentioned that you had found major errors in properties that had just been completed.
Yeah, so some of those errors can be when the builder does a package deal and supplies everything from the washing machine right through, and the connections were never done up. So clients had jumped in, they'd run everything, and it had been a nice slow leak that had been going on for 3 months before they phoned me. Or a shower that didn't have the waste connected correctly and it was leaking. So
The shower waste, I don't know if we spoke about this when Kyle was
we
last
did.
on there. This is the most common thing apparently that happens with new builds, the waste trap not being actually connected properly. And I had to deal with a major building company having neglected this part in an investor's house and it doing serious damage.
And just for the people who, again, aren't used to thinking about such things, basically what we're talking about is water's going down the shower, but it's not going into the right pipe.
correct.
It's going nowhere.
Or it's
it
going
could
nowhere.
also be the silicon sealant at the base of the shower around the frame isn't sealed correctly, because when the plumber or the shower installer does that job, he never tests it because he doesn't want to push the silicon straight out. And he might be racing off to the next job and never return to that house. So what I do is I do the full inspection on a brand new build, and then I normally go back 10 to 12 weeks after the house has been in constant use, and I tell them to use every toilet, every shower, every fitting, and then I can actually test it if there's a leak. We can then jump on, get that fixed way sooner.
So let's go back to the start. So someone's got a property under contract and it's a new build, so it's off the plans. So you've got a whole set of plans, but you don't have a house yet. What would someone do if they're going to engage your services to get your opinion of the build at that stage?
Yep. So one of the first things you do is you see, are they developing any other sites? And if they are, a quick drive past and a review of that site is going to tell you a lot. So the site should always be well organised and tidy. If it's not, that means that things could easily be missed because things aren't overly organised. And then you can also go through a lot of the paperwork with consent documents and so forth. So in the property file from a brand new build, all of the council inspection forms are there. So that can tell you straight away if they've passed or failed on the first inspection. If there's been a few red flags and a few fails, you'll have to look a wee bit closer.
So say, for example, I'm buying off a relatively new developer, but they've got something that's under construction at the moment. Am I understanding this right? You'll go grab the property file for that one, Smith Street, have a look at what their pass-fail rate's been so far, have a look at the site and go, geez, there's a wheelbarrow upside down at the front and three of the guys were sitting there having a smoker and there's all this stuff piled up. This could be a recipe for a disaster. So even with a newish development where there's not necessarily a complete product, you can still give some general feedback as to what your observations
You
be.
can, but it's also important to check specifications because it could have a level 3 interior finish, which is essentially a tidy paint job, or it could be a 4, which is pretty high quality, or 5 right through to architectural. And depending on what your investment is and what you actually need, you could be paying too much or too little and not getting what you actually expect at the end of the day. But a lot of people will never understand what the specifications actually mean.
What does it cost to get? And look, I completely agree. So I've been doing this for years, and the specifications as an investor that's been doing this for a long time, to be fair, I don't really care that much. But if someone is buying 1 or 2 rental properties and it really makes quite a big difference, and the specifications, you might as well be reading gibberish because you don't really know what it means.
Yes.
So I would send that sale and purchase agreement to you, and you'd go through all of that and say, hey, look, they're using this here, and I don't know if that's appropriate. We might actually ask them to up-spec that. And it's easier to deal with that now than afterwards, right?
Or you can actually do the opposite and reverse the spec.
Okay.
So I've had a couple of investment properties that had a grade 4 plus finish listed. And I said, why do you want that? The chances are it's going to get some bumps and bruises and just normal wear and tear. If it's your own house, yeah, by all means, spend the money. But if it's a rental and an investment, you don't need that.
Yes.
What's it cost for you to go through and do this,
Next
Kyle?
question.
Yep. So property files and getting, a bit of documentation through. It's sort of case by case, but a very loose ballpark. You're talking around that sort of 275, 300 odd, and
cheap.
it sort of starts from there. That's for a basic review.
I think
and it
we're
can go
both
up
thinking
from
the
there.
same
Yeah,
thing.
it's way too cheap.
Oh, I thought we were thinking that we should do this for all the developments we're
Oh,
involved
no,
with.
no, absolutely. No, I'm just thinking that this is something that, and Ed and I, just before we started recording, this whole conversation reminded me I want to get Kyle to do any of the Christchurch sign-offs, because I just think it's yes, it's another cost for an investor, but it's such a wise cost. Like, people go and buy a new car for $10,000 and they pay for an AA check for a couple of $100. When you're spending $600,000 on a build, it seems ludicrous that you wouldn't have the same sort of check.
Yeah, well, I regularly get clients phoning up going, I just bought this house 3 months ago, 6 months ago. We've gone to install a kitchen, or we've gone to do this, and we've now got a big problem. So if they had got me in sooner,
Yes.
we could have probably fixed it.
Now, Kyle, one thing that I'm thinking when you're talking about driving past other sites that a developer might be working on and them looking a bit untidy, how do you tell the difference, though, between something that maybe looks untidy, but they could still be a good developer?
Yes,
Do you know
very-
what I mean?
very much so.
Or
So-
they're in the process
Yeah,
of
yeah.
tidying it up.
Well,
for
and
instance.
building sites are not tidy. You and I did that filming on one, and there's stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah, you still got a bit of dust behind your ears.
So there's tidy versus messy, unsafe.
Yes.
So if you've got a flat-out construction site, of course there's going to be a bit of mess, but everything should be relatively organised. So you can see straight away if it's chaos, and if there are tradesmen tripping over each other,
Yes.
that happens at the end of the job. It shouldn't happen at the beginning.
And actually, because Kyle, you mentioned, I don't know if it was this episode or the last one, you'll go and talk to neighbours and those kind of things. You're a pretty approachable guy. I'm sure you might, walk onto site and say, I actually got a client buying one of the other properties and
Yeah.
start chatting to someone.
Yeah, definitely.
You get information pretty quickly, right?
It's not hard if you've got a hard hat and a pair of boots in the back of the ute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, and what happens, say I go into a show home, right? And I'm a normal person. I don't have any
Are ya?
invasive... No, not really. But let's pretend. And let's say that I don't have any invasive tools to drill into things and check different things like
Chances
you
are
would
they
have.
probably won't let you
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
But what you do straight away in a show home is you realise that they have used their very best builder, their very
Yes,
best painter.
absolutely.
So what you're seeing is 110% of what you should expect when you actually
Absolutely.
buy a house.
Yes.
Because everyone puts the best foot forward. That's what a show home always is.
Yeah.
So the tolerances and margins around doors, windows, everything should be perfect or very close to it. But that's when the specifications come into play, because that house has probably been built to a grade 5 when only ever going to be charged out a grade 3 plus.
So when you say grade 3, so I thought that was all just to do with paint quality and those kind of things. And I think there's some rules where, it should look okay if you're a natural light 2 metres back or something like that.
Yeah, so that's a standard old grade 3.
Right.
But it does flow over into other components of the house. So,
Right.
yeah,
So
if
things
you-
like the precision of the door shutting,
Yeah,
that's one of
yep.
them. Okay.
So all of those things, there's construction tolerance to everything. So
Yes.
a standard 2.4 framed wall is allowed to be able to plumb by up to 10 mil over 2.4 on a brand new build.
Okay, so it's quite a lot.
What does that mean? It's going to be facing, it's going to be slanted
What
a
does
bit.
it mean? Essentially nothing.
It's as crooked as you.
You're being very mean to me today. Come on, Kyle.
So it doesn't affect the overall form and function of the house, but it makes it harder to achieve the higher levels of finish.
Absolutely.
Because the door's going to have a twist. Things aren't going to close quite as crisp. There's going to be a few wee bumps and bruises. So, yeah, it's all in that spec. You can easily pay more and get a little bit more, but most people won't even notice.
What's the difference? What are we talking between a grade 3 and a grade 4?
On a house,
Yeah.
tens of thousands.
Oh, really? So it's going to be, 20 grand, 30 grand?
Yeah, exactly. You could, if you up spec a house, you're going to have all these little hidden things that you pay for, but you hardly see.
Yeah, you're hardly going to notice. And if you're not going to live there, you're never going to see them.
Yeah. So it's like
Grade 1, please.
Yeah, but you can't quite go that low. But sound deadening, that's a big one that you put into an up-spec house. So,
What's sound deadening?
so essentially what you're going to be trying to isolate noise from different
Gotcha.
zones. So in a house, there's no legal requirement to actually put that in. But if you've got a bedroom bordering on a lounge and it's your own house and you're going to be
Right.
there for 10 years, chances are you're going to put sound deadening in just to make
Yes.
the house more livable.
Yes.
So that's all the sort of up-spec that can happen that you'll never see.
Now, one of the things that's catching out a lot of investors around the country buying off plans is the healthy homes standard. And it can be quite a nightmare. Now, if you install the wrong heat pump, you're paying to have that ripped out and a new one put in because you can't top up the property if it's built today with wall panel heaters or something like that. Is that something that you do? Like when you look at specs, you'll look at that?
Put it out to another guy.
Yep.
Because it can take up to an hour and a quarter, hour and a
Yes.
half, and it's not worth my time.
No.
For me to charge out an extra hour and a half onto the job, my clients aren't going to like me for it.
No.
So I put that out to another guy.
But that's something that you can
certainly
offer
arrange.
as a service.
Yep.
Great.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say we're getting to the other end now. You've decided that, I'm going to buy this new build property, going through and doing a walkthrough to have a final sign-off in this instance. What are some of the things or the tools that you would use yourself in order to figure out whether it's up to scratch or not for you?
Yep. So most of the appliances are all brand new, so you're going to be able to do minimal testing on those. But the other thing is you've got a vendor warranty that steps in and actually covers off almost all the channels. So you've got to look at what's critical, and that is making sure that the roof system, the drainage system, and everything's actually up to scratch.
Yes.
Chances are it's never been tested.
Yes.
So I'll take the extension hose, I'll actually run flow testing on all of those to make sure that it can get rid of wastewater. I've had a toilet that flushed and did not actually drain away.
Oh.
Brand new build, and the drainage pipe wasn't actually
They'll be
connected.
glad they got you around to test it.
Yeah, well,
That would be such an issue.
it was an interesting phone call, because when I phoned the builder and said, "Hey mate, you connected up 2 of the toilets at this property," and he'd go, "Oh yep." I said, "Well, it's actually 3. You've missed one, and I think it's the one down the side." And he's like, "No, there's no way." And they actually came back, they dug the hole, and it was going straight into the pit run gravel. And we were just lucky that it was caught before anyone actually moved into the house. The toilet was never in service, but we caught it luckily before.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that would not have been a nice
Would have been a
day.
situation.
We're going to have to beep that out, please, David.
Beep
it out. So as an investor, and I'm waiting for code of compliance to come out, when's the best time to engage you to actually go and do this work? Is it before code of compliance? Is it after code of compliance when I'm rushed to settle?
So I actually do a final sort of handover inspection for most of those. So they've already had the builders check, they've had everything done, and then I can go through and just do that final quality assurance essentially. But then we also follow it up with that 10 to 12 week later. And if I find a problem, the great thing is the builders are so approachable, because I've just saved the builder potentially thousands of dollars
Absolutely.
or an insurance claim.
Yes.
When I go, "Hey mate, we've got a wee leak, let's fix it."
Yes.
And it'll cost $100, $200, $300. It could be quite minor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I think that's the key thing. People make mistakes, and as I said, that situation where I had to help those investors out, the funny thing is they'd addressed this with the building company. The building company had come out twice and said, "It's fine. It's you guys. You're not the tenants aren't opening up the windows. This is your fault, not our building workmanship." A building inspector had gone out there, and then it might have even got you out there. And
I know that.
Yeah. And then we discovered actually it's not fine at all. This is a real issue, and then we had to go back to the building company, and it was a costly experience for them for not getting it right the first time.
Yep.
But the thing is, there's such a bias for all of us that if something goes wrong, for us to say, no, it's not my fault, it's your fault, it's what you're doing.
That's basically your MO.
But do you know what I mean? So it's
I do,
natural that a builder or a developer, no, it wasn't us.
Well, I had a lovely one where I had a phone call on a Saturday morning, and apparently the hot water cylinder was leaking into the hallway. And it was a property that I'd recently inspected. So I said, "Look, I'm out of town, I can't deal with this, but I'll send around good old Jay's carpet cleaners." I sent around a plumber and did everything I could. And I told the plumber to take photos of the problem. He did and sent them to me, and it was a brand new hot water cylinder.
Wow.
So it was never me in the first instance.
Yes.
But it's how you deal with the problem.
Absolutely.
So she then got a little bit grumpy when I chased her for every bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I guess we assume as well, if we're buying new, we assume everything's going to be perfect. And it should be. But sometimes it's not, because human beings are involved, and it's not a matter of, okay, well, that's a risk buying new build. It's just a matter of getting these things checked out, and at least most things are going to be under warranty anyway. So if you can pick them up and there's the defects period with your developer, the sooner you get them dealt with, the sooner you get it perfect, the sooner you can have a great investment and not have to worry about it.
One last thing before we let you go as well, Kyle, or rather before we get on to recording the next episode. Other than looking at the tidiness of another development site that a developer is building on or a builder's creating, Are there any other giveaway signs of good workmanship versus poor workmanship when you're checking out a developer, either at a show home or when you're checking out any of their other projects?
It can be very hard until you're actually looking at the house itself.
Yes.
Yeah. And like one of the key things I do for every property as well is I date stamp the foundations. So I'll go through and do floor levels on a brand new house, and people look at me like I'm crazy when I do this. But what happens if we have an earthquake in 5, 10, 20 years' time? At least they can go back to my report, it's date stamped, and we can prove that the house was never perfect. It was 8 mil out of level, but all of a sudden it's 100.
Yes.
Let's fix it.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's lots of things you can do.
And just so I can clarify, so to get an initial inspection done off the plan, so you're just looking at the specifications, seeing if it's relevant for what you're buying, that's a few $100s.
Yes.
To get a settlement inspection, what does that cost?
Ranges sort of from 400 through to 700, but it's all dependent on the size of the house.
Yep.
So if you're after a tiny wee 2-bedroom unit,
Yep.
you're around that sort of 400.
So
and
all
it
up, I could
runs
be
up.
done for $1,000.
Yes, you could.
Awesome, that's
Yep.
cheap.
Does that include your 3-month check as well, or is that extra?
That takes me all of 10 minutes to pop through and do some moisture testing, and that's built into the original inspection with no additional cost. Unless there's an issue, then I have to help manage the repairs and get things sorted.
So I'm going to say now we are going to look at doing this for Christchurch properties, and then we'll find someone appropriate for the rest of the country as well, because I do think Kyle does an excellent job, and I might actually get him to go around and do the one that I just settled and haven't checked yet.
Well, I think it's definitely important that if we're talking about investing for 15, 20 years,
Yes.
that spending your initial grand doing it and making sure that actually this is suitable to hold for 15, 20 years is definitely worth it.
But it also means you can put the reports on file with insurance, and insurance companies love information. So the more you give them, the happier they are.
And that way as well, if you get something wrong relaying information to the insurance company, they can't come back and say, no, we didn't know that.
Exactly. You've built up a good rapport. You've tried to be on the first foot and get everything right.
Fantastic. Let's wrap it up there. But please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really does help us get the message out to more people. And hey, don't forget to join us tomorrow. We're going to take a slightly different track. We're still talking about DD and settlement, but we're going to be talking about it with existing properties. And Carl will be back on the show then. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
I'm Andrew Nicol.
I'm going to be back again tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics, and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.